Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So it's officially been 3 weeks since I've had my baby. I had him on June 10th. He's perfectly healthy, came out 8 pounds 9 ounces, 21 inches long. In this video, I thought I would talk about my labor terror story. Basically, I'm going to start from the very beginning and then go all the way to how I currently feel. So I got induced at 41 weeks. I had a doctor's appointment 2 days before I gave birth. I had a doctor's appointment to determine if my baby was in distress because obviously I was overdue. So I went to my doctor's appointment, and the first thing they did was a fetal heartbeat test, and that determined that every time I was having a contraction, right after my contraction was done, my baby's heart rate would decrease. And so the doctor just told me, all right, I'm gonna call the hospital. You're gonna go home, you're gonna grab your bags, and you're gonna be admitted. I went to the hospital, got checked in, and basically what they did first was give me Cervidil. So Cervidil is like a tampon. It goes into your vagina and it's supposed to loosen your cervix. So when I first went to the hospital, they checked to see how dilated I was because I was having contractions, although I wasn't feeling them at the time. They said I was only 1 centimeter dilated, so they gave me the Cervidil. And the Cervidil you check every 12 hours, so they gave me that around 3 p.m. And an hour after I got the Cervidil, so 4 p.m., I started feeling contractions, and the contractions were on average every 3 to 7 minutes. And for me on the pain scale, it was about a 5 or a 6 on the pain scale. Honestly, it felt just like a period cramps, so they hurt, but they're tolerable. Like I said, that was continuous throughout this whole labor process. I was in labor for about 2.5, 3 days. Got the Cervidil, got checked 12 hours later, so 3 in the morning the next day, and I was dilated to 3 centimeters. The doctor said that because it was my first baby, they wanted me to be more dilated, so they gave me another Cervidil at 3 in the morning, and then they checked me later on that day at 3 p.m. Checked me again. I was 3.5 centimeters dilated. Obviously they wanted me to progress further along, but that obviously did not happen. And at that point they decided to give me the medication to actually start the induction process. I forgot what the name of it is, but it just went through my IV. Gave me that. A couple hours later, checked me. I wasn't dilating, and so the doctor came in and said that I might have to get a C-section, which I was not thrilled about, but they weren't going to schedule me just yet. They were going to give it a little bit longer. So later on that night, the doctor came back, checked me again, still wasn't dilating. So he said, all right, we're going to try to break your water. If we break your water and it doesn't work, you're most likely going to have to get a C-section. And as soon as my water broke, my contractions went from like a 5 all the way to like an 8. It hurt. For me, it hurt really bad. So I waited for about 30 minutes, decided to get medication. So I decided to go with the epidural. And here's where I went wrong, but I didn't go wrong at the same time, and you'll see why. Got the epidural. During this process, when the anesthesiologist came in to give me the epidural, he told me, all right, let me know if you feel it in the left, the middle, or the right. And the whole time I was feeling it in the right. So I kept telling him, I feel it in the right, I feel it in the right. And he just kept saying, really, really? And then he finally said, do you have scoliosis? And I don't have scoliosis, so I was like, no. And at this point I was kind of freaked out because I was afraid that I was only going to be numb on my right side. But after about 30 minutes I was numb on both sides, so I thought everything was fine. But the anesthesiologist, to me, was just a little bit weird because I felt like he was trying to blame the situation on me, trying to say that I have scoliosis or something was wrong with the way I was doing it, or I don't know. It just was a really weird situation, but like I said, I thought everything worked out. So got the epidural. That was probably around like 8 or 9 at night. I can't really remember, but it was later that night. Now I said that it was right and wrong because I got the epidural, my body was actually able to relax, and because my body was able to relax, I actually started dilating. And so I wasn't going to get the C-section, but I was fairly close in getting the C-section. But anyway, got the epidural the next morning at around 3 in the morning. I kept pressing my call button because I was so uncomfortable, and you know with the epidural you can't move. I was so uncomfortable, and they would not let me change positions. They had me stay in the same uncomfortable position for like an hour and a half. They came in and they asked me if I was ready to push, and I said yes because I had been feeling the urge to push for a couple of hours. Anyway, fast forward, had him at 4:54, and like I said, he's perfectly healthy. Everything was fine. My labor was fine. Giving birth to him was fine. Afterwards, though, is where all the real problems happened. So throughout my whole pregnancy, my blood pressure was slightly elevated, but it wasn't anything high. When I got checked into the hospital, it started getting higher and higher. Doctors just thought it was because I was in labor, you know, contractions. But even after I gave birth, my blood pressure was still high, so they diagnosed me with preeclampsia, and so I got a magnesium drip. Preeclampsia, you guys can look that up. Everything was fine. A couple hours after I gave birth, though, I started getting a headache. That is, what is it? Like, I don't know what the word is called, but it's a part of preeclampsia. Like, a sign of preeclampsia is getting a headache. So I just thought it was part of the preeclampsia. After my magnesium drip, which lasts 24 hours, after I was off of it, my headache seemed to go away. So I got up that day, take a shower because I was supposed to go home that day. Got up that day, my head was pounding as soon as I got up. Like, when I was sitting like this, my headache was probably at like a 5, and then when I would get up, like stand up to go to the bathroom, or like I said, take a shower, my headache would immediately go to a 9. My head was pounding. But the night before, I slept my headache off, and so I thought, you know what, when I go home, I'm gonna sleep my headache off just like I did, and I'll be perfectly fine. So I got discharged, went home. My head was still pounding, like to the point where I couldn't even move. Like, just to sit hurt so bad. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it honestly hurt worse than labor. Anyway, I thought I could sleep it off. Woke up the next day. They gave me a piece of paper when I got discharged saying, you know, if you feel like you still have a headache or nausea or high blood pressure or a fever, come back to the emergency room and we'll admit you again and we'll start the magnesium drip. Woke up the next day, head was still pounding, did not have an appetite, tried to eat, threw up, I had a fever. At this point, my headache it broke the pain scale for me. So I went to the emergency room, got admitted to the emergency room. They pumped me full of drugs, which I was not happy about because everyone in the ER was unsure if I was going to be able to breastfeed, and obviously that is important. I ended up being able to breastfeed, but it was just, the whole scenario freaked me out because no one knew anything. Anyway, then I got admitted back into the maternity ward, got diagnosed again with preeclampsia, so got started on the magnesium drip again. At this point, I was just scared. It hurt so bad to just slightly move, like it hurt to get up to breastfeed, which is very frequent obviously with a newborn. I couldn't even get up to change the diaper. Like when I say my head hurt worse than labor, I literally mean it. Like, it hurt worse than anything that I've ever felt in my life. So at this point, I did not know if the magnesium drip was going to work because it did not work last time. And thankfully, one nurse came in. She came in and said, you know what? I wonder if your head hurts because you have a spinal leak. It's very rare, but sometimes with an epidural, something goes wrong and your spine leaks and it causes a pounding headache. Usually it gets worse when you stand up, which is exactly what I was feeling. So every time a doctor or a nurse came in, I said, I believe I have a spinal leak because of X, Y, and Z. Every doctor and nurse that came in said, no, 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 you just have preeclampsia. You have to wait until you're off the magnesium drip, which is 24 hours, until we can really determine what's wrong. Which irked my soul because We already tried the magnesium drip, it did not work. Obviously I did have preeclampsia because I had all the other symptoms, but my headache was still there. And so I was just very irritated. Nobody believed me except for Michael, so thank you. But it was just irritating. So I had to wait another 24 hours. After the 24 hours, my headache was still there. And the whole time I was on this magnesium drip, all the doctors and nurses were prescribing me Narcos because my pain would not go away. It was consistent. And after you take so many Narcos, you can't breastfeed. And to be honest, the pills didn't help me. They just helped me sleep. It brought my pain level probably from like a 10, 9 to like a 6 or 7. So it helped a little bit, but they just made me sleep. And so I didn't even want to take those because, like I said, they didn't help and they didn't let me breastfeed. So I was just kind of stuck in an awkward and painful situation. And after I was off the drip, I still had my headache. So I kept telling the doctors and the nurses, I think I have a spinal leak. I think I have a spinal leak. And every one of them kept saying no, no, no. And finally they sent me the anesthesiologist. I explained my situation and my symptoms to him. And even he said, you know what, some of your symptoms line up, some of them don't. If you want to do a spinal patch, which is what you do to fix the spinal leak, basically they just draw blood from you, go back in just like they would do with the epidural with the needle and everything, and then shoot your blood into the leak. So anyway, he said, if you want to do the spinal patch, we can. It's totally up to you. Like I said, some of your symptoms line up, some of them don't. So at this point, I was just very frustrated because no one believed me and I didn't know what to do. At the end of the day though, I decided to do the spinal patch because the drip didn't work, so I have to try this. The anesthesiologist said, okay, you should feel immediate relief. That's usually what my patients say when they have a spinal leak. And so I got the spinal patch. About 30 minutes later, I was sitting there and I still had a headache, and so I was beyond frustrated at this point because he said that it should be immediate relief, but I wasn't feeling any relief. And so I was, like I said, frustrated and upset because I thought no one knew what was happening with me. A couple of hours later went by. I had to go to the bathroom, so I got up to go to the bathroom and I barely felt my headache. And like I said before, usually when I got up to go to the bathroom or to do anything, my head would be pounding. So for me to be able to get up and barely feel my headache, for those who want to know, pain level like 2 or 3, I was very happy. It was still there, but felt like it was getting better. So I was excited. A couple hours later went by again, got up to go to the bathroom again, and I didn't feel my headache. That's what happened. Got discharged the next day, so my whole hospital visit was a week and a day. So I was in the hospital a long time, so you can imagine what it felt like to finally get out and to breathe fresh air. Got out of the hospital. The only thing that was hurting was my back, obviously, because of my epidural. Well, I basically got the epidural twice. So my back hurt, I would say, probably for about 4 days after the hospital. And then a couple days after that, it was just kind of hard to like move around, if that makes sense. Like everything was just kind of sore, but that's just typical. I finally have felt better. It's been probably about a week, and I felt much better. But that is my labor terror story. If you guys through anything similar or have even gone through what I've gone through, leave a comment down below because I would like to know what your guys' story was with it. So yeah, hope you guys have learned something through my story, or if you were just curious, here you go. Thanks for watching.